Oh hey everyone! Emergency news! There's a new law that forbids people from recording new footage! I'm in hiding right now, but this may be the last time I'm recording myself. Oh wait, there's still something I need to talk about. Ultraman's strongest weapon? The Specimen Ray. The production company's strongest weapon? Stock footage. Okay, I'm exaggerating a bit, but I guarantee you will think more highly of this opinion after this. Stock footage, the production company's strongest weapon. I already said that. According to Wikipedia, stock footage is film or video footage that can be used again in other films. Stock footage is beneficial to filmmakers as it saves shooting new material. Remember this. The Ultra series is a franchise that has spanned several decades, and at the time of the first Ultraman, it was reportedly the most expensive TV show to be produced. Now why is that? As a sci-fi action show featuring monsters and Ultraman, there's a lot of stuff that goes into the show. Miniature sets, vehicles, monsters, special effects, on top of regular production costs. In addition, Ultraman was commissioned as a yearly series at certain points in the franchise's life. Because of these many aspects, Ultraman became the series that all of us know and love today, with the producers giving life to their imaginations and stories. However, it also meant that they were always rapidly burning through lots of resources. The teams always tried to be resourceful as much as they could as early as even Ultra Q, by doing stuff like repurposing old monster suits into new enemies and just limiting the Ultraman action to just 3 minutes. But it was not enough sometimes, even in the present day. Aha! So this is where the stock footage comes in. Stock footage, the production team's favorite weapon. What this entails is the creators essentially reusing old footage for new kinds of scenes. This is pretty smart because they don't have to film anything new, but just repurpose an old scene into something with a new or different context. Hence, they don't have to spend any time or money to film anything new. Of course, we'll go through some examples of this, and only some, because damn does the series do this a lot. Let's start from some of the earliest examples. The use of stock footage can be traced back to, financial difficulties. Basically, in the 1970s, Subaraya Productions was in trouble because of the lack of success of their recent shows Mighty Jack and Operation Mystery. So, to save their butts, they came up with the glorious idea of reusing footage from Ultraman and Ultra 7's fights and turned them into a whole new compilation-style series known today as Ultra Fight. And it's absolutely glorious. Honestly, who can blame them? This is genius! They still had to film some new footage for the production though, but it was still stupid cheap, as they weren't filmed with any miniature landscapes or special effects, just the suit actors beating the crap out of each other. The Ultra Fight concept still lives on today, with named successors like Ultra Zero Fight, Ultra Fight Victory, and of course the new sub-series Ultra Galaxy Fight. While not merely reusing stock footage anymore, these are still filmed entirely with suit actors on green screen footage. Of course, it didn't stop with Ultra Fight. Some movies were also made up of stock footage. Revive Ultraman was movie to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Ultraman. It was almost entirely made up of stock footage. It acts as almost a sequel to the original series, using old footage and recontextualizing scenes into the new plot. My favorite was this one where they justified Ultraman fighting many monsters at once by giving him the duplication ability. It's pretty smart and ridiculous, but completely on brand for the series. Another more well-known film was Ultraman's Story, which had Ultraman Taro as the focus. Now this one has a lot more new scenes and production value, but anyway, a major part of this movie was Ultraman Taro learning about fighting kaiju by watching the Ultra Brothers fighting. This is where the stock footage comes in. It confused some people watching it because Taro also learns techniques from Leo and AT, both of which happen after his own series. But from what I understand, Taro had to continue learning from even more Ultras to get even better, even after he had left the Earth. And of course, this movie is where we got to see a lot more of the Land of Light. Anyway, these two movies happened during the period between Ultraman 80 and Ultraman Tiga, where Tsuburaya still didn't have a stable production going, with many projects coming and going but were still in a pretty tight financial situation. The whole pretending an old scene is a new scene by giving it new context doesn't just happen in movies or spin-offs, but also in the series itself sometimes. The one I remember the most is in Return of Ultraman episode 37, when Alien Knuckle revived Bemstar and Sigurath to analyze Jack's fighting style. Get this, they simply reused the actual footage from the earlier episodes where Jack fought them, and of course, they were defeated in the same way too. Exactly the same. I was kinda watching it with my brain turned off at the time and was so confused when that happened. Sometimes this stuff also happens not because of budget, but because the kaiju suits are not usable anymore. But they could have used any other kaiju instead, which makes me think it really was a time or budget thing. While these recontextualizations are pretty clever and creative, I don't think they're done that often nowadays. One that I remember from a recent show is that the clip of Riku and Pega in Ultraman Z episode 15 was from older footage. Yeah, there are several instances like this too, but they're not as blatant as before. The more preferred way Tsuburaya uses its stock footage throughout its tenure though, is by putting out clip shows. Not clip shows, clip shows. Essentially, clip shows are compilations of trimmed down old stories and episodes, refitted into a new season's worth of episodes, usually with some new commentary or some new topical discussions. There are so many clip shows over the years, it would be crazy to go over them all. Okay, not that many, but still. However, these usually have a similar structure, where there's a navigator being the character to host these clip shows, sometimes with the occasional special guest. Around the early 2000s there was Ultraman Boy's Ultra Coliseum, with Ultraman Boy learning about stuff from watching footage of shows from Ultraman up until Ultraman Cosmos. Sometimes other Ultras would show up and offer their input, like Ultraman Gaia, Tiga, or 7. Ultraman Retsuden was another notable one, which was created when Tsuburaya got a time slot from TV Tokyo and featured Ultraman Zero as the main navigator. It was a complete rebroadcast of shows spanning Ultraman up until stuff from even Ultraman Saga. Ultraman Retsuden was notable because it eventually housed the airing of Ultraman Ginga and Ultraman Ginga S in new Ultraman Retsuden. Eventually, main Ultra series would formally take the place of the Ultraman Retsuden clip shows, starting from Ultraman Orb in 2016. However, the clip shows still stuck around in between different main series, now rebranded as Ultraman Chronicle, with a different focus for each one. These include Ultraman Chronicle D, after Ultraman Trigger, featuring alien Metron, Mardulu, and Deban, and Ultraman Chronicle Zero and Jeed, after Ultraman Taiga, featuring Ultraman Zero and Jeed. These shows' plot typically consists of the navigators reminiscing things that happened before, which prompts the old footage. The most recent example of this is Ultraman New Generation Stars, which aired after Ultraman Decker. This one has a slightly more involved storyline though, with the Ultras having to work together in restoring history by thinking of their memories of their exploits. These kind of clip shows serve two major purposes: to keep their Saturday morning time slot on TV Tokyo, and to refresh audiences on the particular Ultraman stories. Just putting it out there, I'm not a fan of how these clip shows sometimes shove in the movies and it just drags on for 3 weeks or more. Even worse was when they shoved in Absolute Conspiracy during Ultraman Chronicle D. It felt like it took forever to move on. It also bugs me that these clip shows are always recapping the New Generation Ultraman. Like, the New Generation heroes as a group already had 2 recap shows within the past 5 years. Recap some of the older Ultras like the early Heisei Ultraman shows for a change. Here's a counterpoint: they already did, you just didn't watch it. To be frank, these clip shows barely have a story and really are just summarized versions of many of the episodes of the actual series. However, these undeniably also have their own charm to them. Most of them still have their own unique opening credits and opening song, and unique segments in their episodes, like Ultraman Z forgetting about himself while thinking about Ultraman, or Alien Mardulu's goofy antics with Deban in his home. There's still efforts to make things fresh and nice to watch. Some of the edits of the shows are also unique, like the edits of Daigo cut out from Ultraman Tiga episodes in Ultraman Chronicle Heroes Odyssey. While not everyone may like these, or feel like they're not necessary to watch, they're still interesting versions of the shows that we love, and I hope that these are preserved somehow. I say that after complaining. But now I'm gonna complain more! There's also the clip show episode within the series, which is common in recent Ultraman shows. So usually at some points in the series, there's something called a recap episode, which consists of recapping the events of the series up to that point. I don't like these. Let me explain. As a viewer who watches the episodes as soon as they come out, I'm always up to date on the plot of the shows. I don't need these recapped to me. And what's worse is that the recaps always go over the most basic stuff like Ultraman Decker has 3 forms, did you know that? What are they used for? I already know that. I especially dislike it when they put out recaps during pivotal moments like during the climax of the series. Ultraman Decker was quite atrocious with this, as they aired a recap episode before the second last episode, which really took the wind out of the sail of its finale. However, I understand that these recaps are not made for people like me. They're supposed to be for the little kids watching who, I guess, would be happy as long as they see Ultraman on screen. But more importantly, these recaps serve as filler while the production crew works on other episodes. Besides, sometimes the recaps air when it's supposed to be a break week for the TV company. So they air a clip show episode anyway because some Ultraman is still better than no Ultraman. Can't argue with that. And finally, there's also stock footage that's meant to be reused within the episodes. What I'm talking about is stuff like Ultraman transformation sequences where the host goes into a separate space and prepares to transform. Because these are stock footage, the characters are always wearing the same outfit within this sequence, so we get funny stuff like Kei Fukuhide immediately changing clothes and hairstyle when he uses the riser. Besides that, most of the mechas and jets also just use stock footage. Like all the times the Guts Eagle separates itself, it's always the same footage. Same goes to all the meteor activation sequences of the Gun Phoenix jet in Ultraman Mebius. Even newer mechas have this as well, with almost all the Nurse Desai footage being the same one. Now this is true stock footage reuse. And there we have it. Probably about all of the important instances of reusing footage in the Ultra series. Yes, I said it, it is very important. Recycling footage is an art. Just like reusing suits to make new Ultra Kaiju or aliens, it's a clever way to keep costs low while still putting a product out. I think that the Ultra series has managed to get away with a lot of stuff like this because they can get pretty creative with the reused footage. They always try to add a hook to give you a reason to watch these old clips again, such as with the new navigators navigating you through the episodes. And hey, there's always people who haven't finished watching any of the series yet, and there's always a way to make you more interested in watching the rest of the franchise. Plus, these shows are always rewatchable, so I don't mind it at all. Everyone knows they're always working on putting out new stuff anyway, and as long as quality isn't compromised, what's the issue? But yeah, maybe we are letting them get away with too many things. But here's some good news. If I stay here forever, I'll get away with never getting caught for filming new footage ever!
Meanwhile,